Good afternoon. It's just about afternoon, isn't it? Lunchtime, or depends where you
Yes.
are in the world, I guess, watching this. Welcome to another live session with myself, Luan Wise, and Laura Chamberlain.
Hello. You threw me then when you said good afternoon. I was like, is it afternoon? You really What a great start to today's session. It's
What
no
day
longer
is
morning.
it? What time?
It's afternoon.
Doesn't matter. Depends when you're watching. This is clearly a live session, and we're here today. We've done a few of these. If you've seen them before, welcome back. If you're new, we will introduce ourselves in a minute. But it's a very, as you can probably tell already, a live discussion where Laura and I have picked a topic. We have shared that topic in advance with you, of course, to welcome you along. But we're going to just kind of talk about this topic. It may be 30 minutes, it may be up to an hour, depends where we go with it. But you are very welcome to use the live chat, ask us questions as we go. Maybe depending, because of the nature of this topic is about skills and careers and employments, you may prefer not to put your questions publicly. You're very welcome to send either of us DM messages afterwards and we will pick those up. So myself, I'm a marketing practitioner. I've been in marketing for, I'm still bordering, do I keep saying over 20 or am I at the 25 year? I haven't quite decided on that one yet. But I've been in marketing a long time. I've worked in agency side, I've worked client side, and I've been running my own consultancy business for 12 and a half years now. And a term that I use to describe myself, and I know that we're going to explore this later, is a T-shaped marketer. In that the top of the T is that I have a range of broad generalist marketing skills and competencies. And also the strut of the T would be a specialism, a deep dive into B2B marketing and social media marketing. That's the majority of my work with clients now, and also the kind of practitioner-led training that I do.
And I'm Laura Chamberlain. I'm a Professor of Marketing at Warwick Business School, although I am currently on maternity leave. And I'm also the founder of Think, Talk, Thrive, which is all around career strategy, professional development and coaching. So lots of exciting things going on there, as well as my academic work. I'm also a marketer. And I was just thinking, as you were saying, Luan, I have been in marketing for 20 years myself. And I've started my career in industry and then moved over to the academic side. But I've always been quite an unusual academic in some regards, that I've always been very, very active in the marketing space, not just in the academic space. And I'm really passionate about bridging academia and industry. But what we're talking about today is very much around the marketing skill set, looking at it through the 2024 lens, bringing some original thinking as well, and some ideas for people to think about, looking at some of the research that's been done, that's out there, and also sort of with the intention really of helping people to think about their own skills and how they can think about their own professional development. I'm very conscious that if you are in a job search context at the moment yourself, it can be quite tricky out there at the moment. There are a lot of positive signs, though it's not all doom and gloom. But this is quite timely if you are active in the job search. But equally, if you're not, I'm a massive advocate of people constantly thinking about their professional self-development, their skill set, thinking about where they're at. And actually, I think if you leave it until you need to be active in your job search, you've left it a little bit too late. And that's not saying if that's the case, that that's necessarily a terrible thing. But I think it should be something that we have an eye on at all times during our careers, particularly now we're in the era of the squiggly career. So that's kind of a big waffle around what we're going to be looking at today.
Well, and I think you're right there, because just reflecting already, I've just submitted my annual CPD. So as a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Marketing and a chartered marketer, I commit to my own learning, submit 4 reflective statements every year. Literally did mine last week for the previous year. And because I'm a planner, I always kind of think about, what am I going to do this year ahead? Where do I need to focus? Will I read books? Will I go on a course? Will I take some other learning? Will I do my own research project? So I think, yeah, whether you are on that job search or not, marketing is changing so much that you have to keep up to date and you have to keep learning. When I studied anything, social media didn't exist when I was at university, and have to keep learning, and it changes every month. So I think that's also what underlies our conversations, isn't it? Like this concept.
Yeah, of course.
Keep
And so just to point out as well, learning doesn't have to be formal, right? So when you
Yeah.
talk about CPD, it doesn't have to be signing up to do, a course or something formal. It can just be like listening to podcasts or doing your own, curating your own content that you want to consume. Lots of C's in that sentence. Curating your content that you want to consume, around a particular topic as a starter for 10. So it doesn't always have to be some like grandiose, like I am doing some CPD. It can be really simple stuff to keep, your curiosity going, your brain ticking over and stuff like that. So there's lots of different ways to think about that for sure. So we're going to cover a lot, Luan. We better get...
So I shared yesterday on my own LinkedIn profile, as part of talking about this session, a careers report that is very much specifically about social media marketing careers. It was carried out by HootSuite last year. If you haven't seen it, it's on my profile, but I'll pop the link into this chat as well. And I think it's always interesting to look at reports and articles and check the credibility and the context in which they've been written as well. But if you are currently working in social media or thinking about working in social media, I did a university talk last week and did a hands up at the beginning of my talk as to who was interested, and then at the end, and luckily that matched. I didn't dissuade anyone. But the careers report is something that I do refer to because it's really insightful around what the job entails, what salaries are, perceptions from other people, addressing happiness. So there's, some elements in there around, this is a really big job and there's a lot of responsibilities, but it's okay because we can be creative and we're happy in the role as well. Just a couple of points from this report before we talk about some others. Social media marketing, and I think this does relate to my own experiences over 25 years as well, about how the role has grown and that we do so many different things now as well. And some of us do that as generalists, some as specialists on the T, and you can do that within social media as well. Do you want to specialize in a platform or a task? Do you want to be a strategist versus a content creator or a video producer as well? We're kind of shifting all the time. But this report does really talk about social media as being quite broad, about being task related. And I'll be honest about it, it also talks about the perceived value of social media within a broader marketing context as well. So it is quite skills heavy in terms of tactical implementation versus perhaps some of the strategic thinking, the bigger picture activity that we will also talk about.
You know why I'm smiling, because I'm desperate to pick you up on.
No, I'm trying.
I'm going to save that because we're going to talk about that in a minute. But I think one of the things about the HootSuite report is that it has a really nice balance to the report. That's one of the reasons why it's such a good one. It's really insightful and it's easy to use and easy to navigate. One of the things that I'm seeing more and more is there's a lot of skills reports and things being put out there, lists, and it's just content fodder for downloads, and it becomes meaningless because if you read a list of skills and there's no information of how to use it or how you want to apply it or why it's relevant to you, it just becomes noise. And I think people are really clicking into the fact that the job market's a bit tricky, so lots of people are thinking about skills. And plus, there is a lot of movement around CPD and people having an appetite for, self-improvement, which is fantastic. And so people are trying to jump onto that. And there is a lot of content fodder around this. So the HootSuite one is one that I would say I really like for all the reasons that you've mentioned, but also the word of caution, a lot of these, you've got to be a little bit skeptical and pinch of salt with some of them because where are they getting their information from? There's one that I shared with Luan privately that I'm not going to name and shame. I'm being really careful. But I was literally like, they have just done a content scrape on their
Yeah.
search terms and decided that this is a load of skills. And it was just so, and it will make more sense when I share my thinking around what skills actually are, but it was just complete rubbish and it was meaningless. And so there is sort of a lot of that going on as well, which is a word of caution. But around that, Luan, I know that we've mentioned the jobs market a couple of times and just linked into the social media and what's going on with skills and the jobs market. Do you want to speak a little bit around what you're seeing around the jobs market and also opportunities that are available?
Yeah, I think on our last session back in January, I confessed that I have a hobby of collecting job descriptions. And actually someone did message me afterwards and said, I'm with you on that. I do it too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's okay. But I collect job descriptions. I have job alerts set up, not because I'm not actively seeking a job role, but because I want to see what's going on in the marketplace, who's recruiting, what they're asking for in the job descriptions, in the narrative, in the bullet point lists as well. Also the salaries, the job, the industries as well. So I do collect them, but I do also share them. So I have a jobs board on my social media resources website. I'll put the link in the chat in a moment. There's over 50 live social media marketing jobs on there at the moment. And again, there is such a range from social media manager roles, which are very broad and encompass a huge depth and range of tasks, versus some really specific roles, paid social, for example, where it is, quite specific and focused on that as well. But I think for me, when I'm looking at these job descriptions, and I know that there are, many people talking about this in online conversations as well, is that there is a mismatch between the range of responsibilities and the experience that's required, which is often huge, and can anyone tick all of those boxes and have the level of experience, and then the salaries that match those as well. So there is jobs out there, but there's also, a few conflicts if you are, from an external point of view, looking at the range of the requirements, the experience they're looking for, the salaries, particularly the salaries if it's a London-based role versus a hybrid role as well. So I think the jobs market is tough at the moment, but there is a mix out there, whether it is freelance roles, content creation kind of part-time roles versus kind of full-time in-house and contract roles too.
I think as well, just on that point, and just a piece of advice, if you see an SME or a startup advertising for a marketing role, normally, not always, it's someone who doesn't really understand what they're asking for doing the asking.
Yeah.
And so I've seen on a couple of groups that I'm part of jobs being advertised, and actually myself and others have gone back and said, hang on a minute, what you're asking for is not reasonable here. And actually with a little bit of questioning, they've just adjusted the job role, and all of a sudden it's morphed into something that is actually really attractive as a job. Yeah. So it is also worth noting, and again, always proceed with caution, be humble, be polite, and all that kind of stuff. But sometimes people don't necessarily know what they're asking for is not reasonable, or they're asking for the wrong kind of things. So actually, if you show initiative and go back and say, do you really mean this, or do you actually mean this? Or is this more, you want to get these results, this is the job description that would better fit that, that actually you can have a hand in reshaping that. Obviously with massive organizations with huge HR departments, that's a tactic that's never going to work. But if you are seeing job specs and you are an experienced marketer, this is not for early talent, but if you're an experienced marketer, actually going back and having that conversation may actually end up paying dividends, because sometimes it's not through malice or over expectation, it's just not an understanding of what the need is or what they need to ask for, so that there is that to bear in mind as well.
And I think we have talked about that gap before between, who is writing the job description and who is recruiting, not necessarily understanding the nuances and details of the role that they're recruiting for, whether it is a very small business or whether it's part of a larger team as well. So if anyone wants access to my job description collection or advice on, you know, is this realistic? Does this work? You know, I have supported that as well. And that's,
I feel like you need, you know, when
fresh.
people have like actual physical collections and stuff and they're in display cabinets. I'm just wondering, like, do we need a virtual display cabinet of all your job descriptions that you've collected over time? Can we do that?
Maybe.
If
anyone wants me to do that, let me know. I'm happy to do that.
Amazing. Right, I want to talk sorry, Luan, that was a bit mean of me. But I want to talk about what skills actually are, because I think this is a really important cornerstone to the conversation moving forward. And when I talk about skills, I talk about them in the context of two other things, and that's knowledge and competencies. And I make a really clear distinction between what those three things are. And I'm going to show you a diagram in a moment about this. But before I do, I just want to explain my thinking around this. So your body of knowledge is what you know, right? It's your foundation. So no one can take this away from you. And of course, you keep nurturing it. You learn more stuff. It drives your thinking. And your knowledge is important because it means you can understand concepts and different perspectives. But knowledge does not necessarily translate into action. So knowing stuff doesn't mean you know how to do stuff. You can build on your knowledge to develop your skills and your competencies. So it is a cornerstone. It's really important. But as in itself, it doesn't lead to action. Competencies, on the other hand, are things that are job or task related. So this is where you know, like, how to do something, and you can implement that how to as part of a task. So you may have knowledge about something, you develop the competency because you know how to do it. This is usually where training and technical capabilities really come to the fore, and there's not much like a human or personality element to this. So just to give you a little example, you may know about different types of data analysis, and then you may develop a competency knowing how to run a stats package, like, or know how to code in Python or something like that, right? So your knowledge is the knowledge about data analysis. Your competency is then how to actually do the data analysis itself and having the experience behind that. Those two things are really important, but they are not a skill. And what's really important here is to recognize that with a competency, it is easily replicable by other people. So Luan and I could both learn how to do some data analysis, right? We may have different knowledge coming into it, which means we approach it slightly differently, and that's where variation comes in. But the know-how, the competency, I can do this, I can do it, you can do it. Now, we may do it in slightly different ways. The thing that elevates that into the way I do it compared to the way that you do it is the skill, and that's the human element. It's unique to you and it is learned. So it's how you approach things, how you are, how you interact with other people. It's not task focused. They are transferable to lots of different contexts. So in order to develop and master skills, you have to understand yourself as well as the skills context in order to develop your skill set. So if you start to think about these three things as a triangle, what I call the talent triangle, they interplay with one another, right? So you've got knowledge, competencies and skills, and it's the combination, here we go, of these three things that allow you to start thinking about how you can do what you do. Now, you may be developing knowledge in a new area and then think about how to develop your competencies, and then it's about marrying that up to existing professional skills that you already have. So professional skills can be things like creativity. It can be using the data example. It can be around analytical thinking, or it can be around how you interpret data to engage with storytelling, for example. That can be a professional skill, moving that competency of analysis and putting your way of doing it on top of it. You'll notice from the diagram that's in front of us as well here on the slide, I've got two concentric circles in the middle of the diagram. So as part of this talent triangle, it's important to recognize that it all starts at the core, which is you as a human being. Now, there's stuff there at the core which is around, and I don't want to get too deep into this, but it's stuff that's innate to you. So your temperament, your basic emotional responses, your memory, your attention, your genetics, your personality. That's all in the core, right? And so from that inner core circle, it pushes out into your, what I call your inner or your human skills. This is why with things like DISC, Myers-Briggs, people focus in on personality, because it sets the frame for everything else that you start to do, right? But there are conflations that happen there, and that's different thing that happens. Your inner skills then, or your human skills, are the way that you have developed, again, skills are learned, to do things over time, over your lifetime. So this is not in a professional context. So inner skills can be things like optimism, confidence, self-belief, intelligence, because if you think about growth mindset, that's learned. You know, you have people who believe that they only have a certain amount of intelligence. That's a fixed mindset, but intelligence is something you can actually grow. Adaptability, persistence, and Luan's laughing because she knows I'm going to say curiosity. That is an inner or a human skill. Yeah. So if you think about, you have your core and it pushes out into these inner skills that you learn over time just as a human being, and then those circles, as you develop your professional career, you gain knowledge, competencies, and professional skills, which is why they're the triangle around those circles. Now, I'm going to caveat all of this because there's lots of interplay between these different elements, and I've developed this concept. This is one of the foundational concepts in what I call the Thrive Tapestry. Now, that is a bigger framework. This is one element of the framework. But the reason why it's called a tapestry is because there are lots of ways to think about how this applies to you as an individual. There is no one size that fits all. And the trick with it is to find the threads that run through this framework. So Luan asked me ages ago, it feels like ages ago, perhaps it isn't, how is curiosity a skill? Like, surely that's not a skill. And it is, because it's an inner skill. Some people are naturally more curious or develop curiosity more than others. I naturally am a very curious person. I developed curiosity from a really young age, and I've been lucky enough to capitalize on that in my career. So I was always the kid that asked why. I mean, my poor parents, I was so annoying. I've always been curious about human beings, essentially. I've not been curious about like mechanics or the way why things work or stuff like that. That didn't do it for me. But human beings, very curious about why people do what they do and all that kind of stuff. As a researcher, I've been able to satisfy that curiosity because I research consumer psychology amongst a few other things, and that curiosity fuels that side of my career. And obviously moving into the Think, Talk, Thrive space, it absolutely falls part of that. So for me, curiosity is an inner skill that I have actually developed as a professional skill. So for me, it's one of those threads that comes through my framework and my Thrive Tapestry, as it were. So the important thing here is that you can adapt it to yourself, but actually by starting to pass out these things like professional skills, competencies, and knowledge, it allows you to really break down what it is that you're talking about and what is unique that you bring to the table. So saying that you know how to do something to do with SEO, for example, that's a competency. Well, that's easy for other people to say they know how to do it as well. Can you double that with a skill and start to talk about the value you bring in the combination of your knowledge, your skills, and your competencies, which is your unique position on that thing that perhaps an employer wants? I feel like I'm rambling, Luan. You're nodding away. Does that answer your question? Because I haven't shared this around why curiosity can be considered to be a skill.
I think we have lots of debates between us, but the reason that I love doing that is you're right. It's about, I'm also would say I have curiosity as a skill, but this is about self-reflection, isn't it? And when you are wherever you are in your career or planning your career, it is about self-reflecting on what you do and what makes you you, and how what you're marketing yourself to others, whether that is for an employed role or whether it's for a freelance role as well, because we have to all do this all of the time as we're looking to develop our careers or take on new tasks, assignments, clients, employers and roles as well. So I think for me, this is all about self-reflection and understanding what fits where to piece this together into your own kind of value proposition, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And being able to articulate your value and understanding your talent goes a really long way in terms of thinking about your self-belief around, you know, what you're bringing to the market. But just to circle back round onto this idea of self-reflection, when I teach at Warwick Business School, I teach around skill sets as well as around topics, as it were. And when I do a lot of teaching around customer experience, I always emphasize that empathy is super important when thinking about customer experience. And one of my students turned around and said, well, hang on a minute, aren't you naturally more empathetic as an individual? Surely that's not a skill you can learn. And actually, yes, of course, some people have more of a predilection to being empathetic, and some people really don't. They find it something that's really difficult for a whole host of different reasons. And there's no judgment attached to that. But that's part of the inner skill set, whether you are sort of naturally more empathetic, or it's something you've developed over time, or it's something that actually you're not. But there's a difference between that and developing empathy as a professional skill. So when you look at professional skills, there's two lenses that I advocate that people look at them. If you look at empathy, it's a good thing, quote unquote, to try to be empathetic towards your colleagues, right? To put yourself in their shoes when you're negotiating, when you're working in a team, understanding different points of view, all that kind of stuff. If you're a marketer, being empathetic has a slightly different meaning. It's about understanding your customer's point of view, being able to put yourself in the shoes of people who aren't like you, because your target market often isn't, and actually being able to sort of really get under the skin of what it means to be your customer, what their priorities are, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and how you're solving problems for them, essentially. So taking that one professional skill of empathy, of course, that's an inner skill, which people may or may not develop, but as a professional skill, being able to learn how to do that, both as like a worker, which is why it's the professional context, but also as a marketer, they're two slightly different things. And so this is why I break it down into thinking about your professional skills as both a professional context, so you as an employee or an employer, and as a marketer, so having a professional lens and a marketing lens to thinking about your skill set. When you look at job ads as well, it helps you to decipher, again, using these two different lenses, what it is they're actually asking for. And if you can actually start talking about your skills through a professional lens and a marketing lens, you're adding breadth and depth to an application or a conversation about what you can bring to the table. It's a really powerful way just of thinking about your skill set slightly differently. So go on, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to pick up on your point that, you know, this is something I see all too often is marketers at various stages of careers thinking that their customers and their audiences are like them, and translating their own experiences, their own usage. And maybe this is because I do work in social media a lot, but just that kind of like, but I use this, and so everyone else must do it this way. That is very rarely true. So understanding whether it's different generations or because of people's different interests as well, you are very rarely your own customer. So we have to do that piece around someone else's shoes and their lens as well. And I think that's important for the job market as well. But in your day-to-day work, that's one of the biggest things that I see. I see it in LinkedIn posts, like, I did this, therefore you can do that. It's different. You know, I don't use Facebook, therefore no one else uses Facebook. They do. 3 million people use it every month, just because you don't personally use it. So it is the big picture stuff that we need to be thinking about.
Absolutely. And just to go back a stage as well, so using my distinctions between competencies and skills, you'll see a lot in job ads and what people and these lists and the reports and things, people are conflating the two things and they're not one and the same. And so people are talking about competencies like it's part of a skill set. Now, they marry up, of course, but they're not one and the same. And so you're never going to find your uniqueness, for want of a better word, if you start like talking about competencies, because everybody, you can not quickly learn a competency, that's not necessarily fair, but it's less unique to you as an individual. It doesn't acknowledge what you bring to the table as much as if you think about your skills in combination with the competencies. And so you know, this is where sort of trying to find ways to stand out from the crowd, it becomes really important. So should I talk about, rather to find what a skill is, should I talk about let's talk about our research. You talk about yours first, Luan, because you had some really interesting stuff around this for the social media book, didn't you?
Yeah, so as many of you know, again, if you've watched it before, Laura and I have also been doing a research project together for a few years now, some of which featured in my book that was published in October, Planning for Success. There was it was a mixture of questionnaire and qualitative interviews. We did research in 2020 and in 2022 as well. And the questionnaire was whether people agreed, disagreed, and a scale, as well as some kind of multiple choice and ranking options as well. And there was some questions in there around, I know what to do if, or I don't know what to do, or I haven't asked this question, I know how to measure. Those answers we've covered on previous sessions. But there was a question that we added to the 2022 research. It doesn't actually feature in the book at the moment. We're working on how we use this, but we asked people, I say people, over 200 marketers in the UK working for SMEs. We asked them to put in order competencies that were important for a social media manager. And we've just revisited this answer over the last couple of days to see what it said. And you put the word interesting. I think we can layer up what we mean by interesting. But our findings in that ranking said that video creation and copywriting was more important than data analysis, and also strategy formulation was actually put at the bottom of that ranking as well. So I'm going to say interesting in that that's not what I would want to see in terms of competencies for a social media manager. It's been very much kind of task focused versus big picture.
And that speaks to this idea that people are chasing knowledge and the quick wins, and actually the doing a quick course or a quick know-how, people feel like they're beefing up their skill set by getting these quick wins to put on their CV. But actually the nuts and bolts of it, the stuff that's actually a bit harder, like doing the strategy, that's the stuff that's really, really important and will make people stand out a little bit more as well. So yeah, I mean I did kind of understate it and say interesting was that I was trying to be kind. To be honest, it's a bit worrying because I think people are not doing themselves a disservice. That's not quite the right terminology to use, but are being swayed by quick wins and not really thinking about what their profile is and what they need in terms of their self-development. And for me, if you work in social media, like the strategy piece, as your book completely speaks to, is just so fundamental. Like you're not going to go anywhere without understanding your strategy and what you're trying to achieve and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a really interesting frame to think about that.
And I think some of the challenges around how those answers were given, but also relating it to job descriptions and the recruitment process as well, is our understanding of other roles as well. So if anyone has seen or started to read the articles from Marketing Week about the Marketing and Careers Salary Survey, they are also picking out key skills are what's valuable, what's hot right now, what isn't. And there's so many discrepancies in that. Again, I think there's a big skills gap around data analysis versus strategy formulation versus tactical stuff. So it's interesting to look at, as you said, those reports that we were exchanging as well, of what do people see as skills, what do they rank as skills, and actually then what does it mean?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a piece of research. I've looked at 50 different skills frameworks. This is how I spend my time.
Your hobby, mine's job descriptions, yours is skills frameworks.
Mine's geeking out about skills frameworks. You should see what I've done with some personality ones. That's a whole different conversation. But anyway, I've looked at those, and actually I've listed the top skills in 2024 as communication, analysis, critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, strategic thinking, leadership, adaptability, negotiation. This is for marketing, storytelling, collaboration, empathy, and resilience. Woo!
Huge
List, right? But you could look at that list and be like, well, they're relevant to any profession. Everybody has to communicate. Surely everybody has to be resilient, and there's a whole different thing about resilience for another day. And you'd be right. But these skills are shaped by individuals and their experiences. And this is why it is so important to look at skills through the professional context and then the marketing lens as well. Because people will be like, and then apply that to you. So, you know, if I talk about what creativity means for me as an individual in my professional context compared to you, Luan, we probably will both say we have creative parts of what we do, but how we define it, how we implement it, how we use our creativity and what that looks like and what it means for us will be completely different. So it's layering on that meaning that then starts to become really important. And this is why I criticize what I call the content fodder of like, these are the list of skills, because I could publish that list of skills, the top list of marketing skills for 2024, here's a list, and it would just go out into the ether because it would remain meaningless unless people know how to think about it and what to do with it.
Yeah.
Which
you've done for us. Yes.
To a really exciting thing that I'm doing. So as part of Think Talk Thrive, I'm developing the Thrive Tapestry, and I'm trying to look at different ways in which I can empower and enable people to think about their skills and to make it accessible as well. So I'm running a pilot around a skills audit tool. It's very much a pilot. I can't say this enough. It is in a test stage. And I've picked 5 skills from my list. And for each of the skills, there's a dashboard where you can fill out 15 questions looking at the skill in a professional context and 15 questions filling out the skill in a marketing context. And then you'll get a score to represent that skill professionally and in a marketing context. And there are 5 different ones that you can access. Now, if you would like to access this, all you need to do is to go to thinktalkthrive.com. Scroll down to the bottom of the website and click the sign up button, not the contact form, the sign up button. Sign up for the newsletter, and then the email that you'll get, there is a link to the download where all of this is explained, and there's the links to the different dashboards. I'm heavy caveats. It is a pilot scheme. We're testing to see if it works, but also this is one part of the puzzle, and so there's a lot written in the download about, you know, this is not an indicator of good versus bad. It sits in the context of that triangle and all the lovely things that I've been talking about. So I don't want people to do it and be like, oh my God, I've only come out as a 3 or as this, and have a crisis of confidence. That's not what this is about at all. For each of the skills, if you do the questionnaire, you will get your numbers on the dashboard immediately. But you can also pop your email address in. And what that means is I can send you a personalized report. And this is not an upsell opportunity. It's genuinely like, I want to send personalized reports to people where I can then give you more information about how to think about your answers, think about your self-development opportunities, and also get some feedback on the tool itself, because it's very much in the development phase, which is why it's a pilot. But I'm super excited about this, because if this enables people to really think about their skill set in a slightly different way, it will really sort of be a bit of a game changer in terms of helping people to understand how to get to grips with their self-development and think about, you know, their full profile, as it were. So little plug there, was a very long plug, but head over to thinktalkthrive.com. I'm sure Luan's going to put the link in the chat. Thank you, Luan. And as I said, it's the sign up button, not the contact form, the sign up button, and the automated email you'll get has got the link in there. It's only going to be valid for like a week. It's just a small scale test for us, but if you'd like to engage with it, we'd really love you to just to play around with it and see what we're doing. And if you've got any immediate feedback, feel free to reach out to me. And it's in my email's in the form, or you can reach me on LinkedIn. But yeah, there's some super cool work we're doing around this.
It's very cool.
It is cool. I'm really pleased.
It's very cool. It's very cool. But it is the thing about, you know, why we have these discussions as well, and other people, is like, again, it's about downloading these reports, isn't it? Is you can read an article, you can watch a webinar, you can digest, but it's then doing something with it and taking action and inputting it. So I think perhaps we could just kind of start to round up today's session by going, we're encouraging people to think about their skills, competencies, your triangle, which is amazing. Then what? Then how are we going to use this better understanding of what we're doing or where we want to develop to help our career, whether we are early career looking for graduate opportunities, maybe freelancers looking for new opportunities, or employed roles as well. What's your first tip?
Where do I start? I mean, for me, first and foremost, I guess it's CVs is the obvious answer. So there's a lot around how you reflect the keywords from a job description on your CV, but filtering that through the lens, so it's not just a match, filtering it through the lens of, is this a competency, is this a skill, or is this a knowledge requirement? What are they actually asking from me? Is it a professional? Is it a marketing skill? Will shape where you put it in your CV. In terms of like under past experience, whether you want to highlight it in your personal profile. There's lots of different ways you can think about how to sort of start to showcase this stuff. If you're going for a really technical role and they want to see loads of competencies, then of course that needs to be front and center in your CV, and the skills sort of, you know, lower down and embedded elsewhere. There's lots of different ways that you can think about how to showcase this information in the CV, but using the framework allows you to almost analyze the job description in a more meaningful way, like what are they looking for and what are they asking for. Also, I think there's a lot here, and it's a big stream of work that I'm doing around how we understand our value and articulate our talent. Everybody has value and everybody has talent, and I think no matter if you're early career, mid-career, senior, freelance, employed, it does not matter. We need to know what we're bringing to the table. And one of the big things that I want people to have the self-belief to actually talk about what they're good at and not be ashamed of it or shy away from it. Like, I'm really good at this, and I own it and I'm proud of it. And I think, you know, that's a big part of this wider piece of work. So for me, CVs, value and talent. What about you, Luan?
Well, obviously, I do a lot of work on LinkedIn and I do a lot of guest lecturing. And I was at university just last night doing an employability session on LinkedIn. So I'm going to take your word showcase and say that that's what I advocate using your LinkedIn profile for. So many people will set up their LinkedIn profile as a very simple copy and paste of their CV when they've done the CV work. And I think a CV, obviously compiling that is a good place to start, but a LinkedIn profile is a living document. It's 24/7, it's online. And for me, it's very future facing. So your LinkedIn profile is about getting found for what your next step is, whether that is a freelance assignment or a profile piece or a podcast interview. But take those elements that we've been talking about and use two key sections. The skills section on LinkedIn has recently been updated. You can now add 100 skills.
100?
It's 100 now.
100? I didn't know it went up to 100.
Yeah. I'm not advocating needing to get to 100. It was previously
I feel 50. Like that's a challenge.
Yeah, it was previously 50, and that was a challenge. But as we've been talking about, those skills listing, which are from pre-populated drop-down lists, go for a mix. So it will be your skills that are related to your I'm going to get my words wrong, but your knowledge and your function versus those skills around curiosity and empathy as well. So go for the full mix and see it as a set of keywords on your profile that help your profile get found. For me, that's what the skills section is about. Naturally, when you're writing other parts of your LinkedIn profile, whether it's the experience section, the about section, summary, your headline, some of those keywords will come into it as well. But
can I just add to that as well? So before we go on, just the idea of that thread as well. Like if curiosity is one of your threads in your tapestry, as I call it, and that's something that like is really important to you, or creative. I'm talking to somebody at the minute, one of my clients, creativity is like so important to them. Or if you know you're a really analytical person and that is one of the threads in your tapestry, you know, that should be front and center in terms of, you know, one of the top things that you're saying about yourself in your LinkedIn, right? Because it's it's what you want to be known for, but it's also who you are. So if people pick up on that and be like, oh, you like really emphasize curiosity, or I see you're a really curious person. If you really are, and you start talking about that, you light up and all that kind of stuff. So it moves you from what people can see about you and learn about you to when you have conversations with people, right? Sorry, I interrupted.
No, that's fine. Well, that is the point. Is it's your LinkedIn profile is your opportunity to showcase yourself. A lot of the time when people are searching online for your name, if they know you, your LinkedIn profile will come up first on Google search, but you're also trying to get discovered through the LinkedIn platform itself. So I just wanted to kind of almost highlight that there are also additional sections. And when I review LinkedIn profiles, most people fill in the core stuff, as I said, copy and paste from a CV. But there is a brilliant additional section called projects, which is where you can bring to life your case studies, your evidence. And this, again, is why I would say it's forward facing. So if you are early career, maybe you're still studying, put your dissertation, put a key assignment in your projects and explain it. If you're employed, you're freelance, use it as a case study section. So I, for example, very early career, I did a lot of website project work. So my project section of my LinkedIn profile was very evidence heavy on website projects. I no longer do that. I no longer want to do that. So I don't have them or keep them on my LinkedIn profile.
Please don't ask Luan to do that.
I can do it. Whether I want to do it is a different thing. But I'm always making sure that my project section of my LinkedIn profile is evidencing what I want to be found for now and in the future as well. So I think at the moment, my projects is kind of reflective of my book and my research, because that's where I am now. If I move on to doing something else, I can use that as evidence as well. So please bring your CV and your personality to life on LinkedIn to help you get discovered. Support your application process as well. These things do need to match up, because people will look at both. So I think, Laura, in 46 minutes so far, we've done our intro, our definitions, our toolkit, and some practical advice as well.
Yeah, I think we've covered quite a lot. Yeah, and I think as well, what's also really important is, Luan and I are talking about this and thinking about this all the time. So we are really open to conversations around this. This is not just in this forum here. Like, you can contact us, you can talk to us about any of the things we talked about today, or any questions that you have. We are more than happy to talk about this, because it's something that we're both incredibly passionate about. So yeah, I hope that's been helpful, useful, insightful even.
So if you are watching this live, you can always watch it back again. If you're watching the recording, thank you. As Laura said, do invite questions, and we have some new sessions in the planning. I think will be after Easter now, won't it, where we are going to pick some skills and dive into skills. We're going to pick some competencies and dive into those as well. So we're very much this year talking about a marketer, and being really practical about sharing advice and insights and experiences with you. So I think it will be after Easter, our next one, won't it? Because that's coming on fast. We will share the date with you. A huge thank you for those watching. Thank you, Laura. We will carry on our conversations from random times of day on WhatsApp, and then share those discussions with all of you at some point. Thank you.
Thank you.